Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a bitterly cold, actually, Bloomfield Road. Norwich City in action this afternoon in the Championship against Blackpool. There is the surroundings. And before we get to the team news, which of course breaks in a couple of minutes' time, it's worth noting geographically to our left, literally a couple of seats along, is the away end where the Norwich City fans will be in this afternoon. So we're in close proximity. It basically feels like we are in the away end, to be completely honest. We are about a minute away from learning Norwich City's team this afternoon. The players have been out to inspect the pitch, as they often do before games. Liam Gibbs was one of the Norwich City players out there. So too was Jonathan Tompkinson and Ben Gibson. There was no sighting of either Grant Hanley or Andrew Omobamidele. That doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't playing. Might just mean that our eyesight's not very good, which is also a possibility given the obvious. So we'll see, and we'll get all the answers to those questions in a minute or so. Paddy Davitt joins me as you can see, and I don't know if there is much point cutting across to him, because I think in a minute or so we will learn that team news. Can already see some score predictions coming in. So throughout this video, make sure you get yours in. Let us know where you're watching the game from, how you expect the game to go as well. Norwich City, of course, hoping to make it 8 unbeaten in the Championship here today. Blackpool in 19th place. They've only won once all season. You look at the league table, the expectation probably is for Norwich City to record a positive result here today, and it would certainly set up. And here we go. We have the Norwich City team news. One change for Norwich City. So they line up like this. Tim Krul in goal, Aarons, Byram, Omobamidele, and Hanley the back four. So I'll just read that again in order. So it's Krul in goal, Aarons right back, Omobamidele and Hanley the two central defenders, and Byram left back. Looks like McLean and Nunez as a midfield two, with Sargent on the right, Onel Hernandez on the left, with Aaron Ramsey behind Teemu Pukki. The subs bench: Angus Gunn, Ben Gibson, Jordan Hugill, Kieran Dower, Gabriel Sara, Daniel Sinani and Liam Gibbs. So let's right across, Paddy. I mean, we didn't see them expecting the pitch. Doesn't necessarily, as we said, mean they aren't playing. They are both playing. How much of a relief will that be for Dean Smith, given both Grant Hanley and Andrew Omobamidele pulled out of international duty over the recent hiatus, as we're not allowed to call it a break?
Not if you're Dean Smith, no, definitely not a break. Big relief, yeah, but to be fair, I think the club put out some training pictures yesterday, didn't they? And both Hanley and Omobamidele were in, so that would have been a serious double bluff if there was no sign of them in that lineup. My sort of eye is immediately drawn to the absence of, unless I'm completely overlooking him, no Todd Cantwell in that match day squad. And for me, subject to the two centre backs being fit, I only really saw one position that was up for grabs. I think in the paper I went Cantwell, but it could have been Cantwell or Hernandez. He's gone with Hernandez. There's no Cantwell on the bench. Doesn't necessarily mean anything of a fitness-related issue. We know how cutthroat that it is to get into this squad now, with players coming back all the time. So with Zara, with Dowell, with Sinani, of course, and of course Liam Gibbs might be the factor there that's knocked Todd Cantwell out. But that's a whole different debate, really. If Todd Cantwell's now not making benches and he's available. But let's not prejudge that. We'll put that to Dean Smith after the game, why Todd Cantwell isn't involved. But not surprised hugely. As I say, I thought it would be 10 of those 11 if the centre-backs were fit. That's proven to be the case. And Hernandez, I think, probably is offering more for Dean Smith at the moment. Gabby Zara didn't do enough, clearly, for Dean, giving him his first start against West Brom prior to the international break period. So he drops back out again. Good news that Gibbs is straight back in, because, with the news about Isaac Hayden being put on hold again, his return, or at least to get to a point where he's in contention, the sight of Liam Gibbs is very encouraging. But more encouraging, I guess, is, those two at the centre of the defence, Grant Hanley, Andrew Omobamidele, pulled out of international squads to rest shoulder and groin injuries, respectively, but fit enough for duty. And that's big. That's big, because those two, I think, particularly with the imbalance in the wider areas on the left-hand side with Sam Byram continuing down that flank, I think those two, they're essential, really, to Norwich looking to have that platform to try and find that cohesiveness moving forward in this side, which for me is where the issues still lie. It's with the ball, progressing it through the middle into the forward areas, maximising what Teemu Pukki offers you. I think we'd all agree, and that was underlined graphically, wasn't it? The West Brom game and then the Bristol City game, even a few days before that at Carrow Road. It's not quite there in the forward areas of the pitch with the ball in possession, and that's the area for me. But for me, even with that debate about the left-hand side of the defence and the imbalance with Byram, with no Yanulis, it feels like that looks quite settled and that looks quite reliable for me. Graham's going for it in a big way, 1-4. Not sure I'd agree with that, but anybody was, stumbled onto our Pink and Insta live about an hour ago from a blustery seafront in front of the tower. I thought this would be a tougher one. Nice to report it's nowhere near as blowy in here. It's quite an enclosed space and we're set back obviously from the seafront. So my sort of fears that might impact the game. I don't think the conditions necessarily will. So that's one less thing for Norwich to concern themselves about. But I just think, given the lack of preparation time over this period, Blackpool, I'm sure, Appleton, as you pointed out there, Connor, they're really in desperate need of points. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, hard season at the wrong end of the table. They might just fancy trying to catch Norwich a little bit cold here today. So Norwich will have to earn it, I think, if they get the result. But, really positive news in that team selection.
Absolutely. Blackpool look like they've moved to a 4-3-3. I'm just trying to work it out completely. There you go. Adam's got it in a 3-4-3, which will work as well, I suppose. There is the Blackpool team for you there. We'll flash the Norwich team up as well, because I can see a few people on the comments asking for that. We'll get that up in just a moment or so, and then you'll be able to see that. Saves me reading it out again. Pad, I guess whilst we wait for that Norwich team to pop up again, and we can talk over it, so it's fine. Onel Hernandez, there's been debate that's rumbled on sort of all season around him and just his place in it. I suppose we'd probably regard him as a finisher, wouldn't we, in terms of the way he's been utilised by Dean Smith this season. He's come on late in games. He's had an impact against tired defenders. We're going to see him from the start this afternoon. That's a completely different dynamic for him. How do you see that one playing out?
Well, I mean, he's had his opportunities, hasn't he? But he hasn't quite, nailed it. Hence why he came out of the side. So for me, it's another opportunity for him to grasp it. It probably also, in a wider point, cuts to the heart of nobody's really nailed it down. Sinani had an opportunity there. I know we're talking right-hand side, left-hand side, but they are very interchangeable in the modern game, those sort of wider areas in this system. Didn't grasp it. Dowell, not necessarily in those positions, but across that front three, front four, didn't really grasp it. And let's be honest, Todd Cantwell didn't really grasp it. Not to the levels of performance we know he's capable of or the influence he's capable of exerting. So goes to what I said in my first sort of comments. I think, there is questions around that cohesiveness through the middle of the park, through the final third. And that comes in part, whatever you want to debate about Dean Smith and what he's trying to get this group to do, but individuals not stepping up and grasping their opportunity. And, Onel Hernandez will get another one today. He's got it in him, but it's just extracting him. And that, for me, has been his Norwich career. There's a player, certainly at this level, I think there'd be a big question mark about Premier League level, but certainly at this level, with his pace and his thrust and his directness, he should be able to cause championship defenders, championship fullbacks, a lot of problems. But it's that consistency, and it's that consistency of his final ball, it's his final decision, which we haven't seen enough of, for me, across his entire Norwich career. But there's always a sense when he's on the pitch and when you get the ball to him, something can happen. And, hopefully we see more of that today. And if we do, then, we won't be talking about him in that finishing role, but more of a frontline option. But, I have my doubts whether he can fulfil that brief. I mean, you look at Ramsey now, how he has flourished, and there's no debate for me that Ramsey will be in this side because he's producing assists, he's producing goal-threatening situations. He needs to add a goal or two, but fundamentally, he's having an impact. We need to see that from some of these other players as well.
Thank you. Team sheets have just been handed to me, so I'll just read the Blackpool bench because we didn't have that. Their subsequent Dan Grimshaw, Callum Connolly, Gary Medine, Sonny Carey. Of course, we had an interview with Sonny during the week. You can read that on the Thinking Plus app. Helston boy actually was a Norwich City academy player for 8 years. Some really good stuff from him. Earlier in the week, Shane Lavery, CJ Hamilton and Liam Bridker, who only signed for the club yesterday, completes their bench this afternoon. So going to be an interesting encounter, isn't it, Pad? Because you've got two teams who probably are fighting for different things. There's been a lot of change at Blackpool this season, largely out of their control. Neil quickly moved on to become Stephen Gerrard's assistant at Aston Villa. That's led Michael Appleton coming back to the club. Second season at this level as well. It feels like the expectation is probably a little bit different. So they've only won once here as well this season. They come into this game on the back of back-to-back defeats. What does that do in terms of what type of game does it create? Because I think Michael Appleton said in his pretty much press that he's expecting Norwich to have probably the lion's shares of possession. So are we expecting another game where we're going to see Norwich forced to kind of break down a relatively low block again?
Well, yes, I think so. I mean, it probably won't have escaped his attention given he does have a connection to West Brom. I think Dean Smith alluded to it briefly. I think it was even maybe only 1 or 2 games, but he was in charge at West Brom very early in his coaching career, and he had Craig Shakespeare alongside him. But he'll have looked at the last game Norwich played, and that was West Brom at Carrow Road, and how difficult Steve Bruce made it in terms of the setup. And as Dean Smith alluded to on Thursday, as it was at his pre-match presser, that they had 70%, I think he said, up around that of possession, Norwich, but primarily it was their centre-backs, it was their full-backs, it was the holding midfielder, and they didn't really do enough with it. And that was credit, as he again acknowledged, Dean Smith, to what West Brom did in terms of denying them that opportunity to get it into the more creative players higher up the pitch. I've got no doubt Michael Appleton will have seen that and studied that setup and would look to do something similar. Maybe slightly different, the fact that they're at home and the onus, you would think, with this home crowd would be to try and get at Norwich. So he might have to be a bit more nuanced in his approach. But yeah, I think that's probably how it will pan out. And it will be, again, questions that Norwich didn't answer against West Brom that they need to answer. And more often than not in this league, because, again, Dean Smith very clearly made the point on Thursday, more often than not, they will have the lion's share of possession. And they need to be far more flexible, far more creative and intelligent in how they problem solve, because there was precious little evidence of that against West Brom, and it got quite frustrating in the end, and a touch fortunate maybe to get something from that game. So until we start to see them deconstruct the same type of issues on a week-to-week basis in the Championship, then those questions will persist. But yeah, I think there's no doubt that Michael Appleton will have looked at how West Brom went about the task and try and erect the similar type of obstacles. And worth reiterating, it's 10 of the same 11 starters from that West Brom game for Norwich. So pretty much the same personnel, bar Hernandez, who maybe does offer them something a bit different. He can go a bit more direct, a bit quicker, stretch the play a bit more. But it's essentially going to be the same personnel. So, we'll see, albeit they haven't had 2 weeks really to do too much on the training pitches because of the international demands. But we'll see if if they have learned and if they have debriefed what went wrong and come up with ideas as to how they can put that right. So there's a lot of intriguing elements to this game. It isn't just, for me, another Championship afternoon. It's where we see evidence that Norwich are beginning to, grasp how they can get past the problems that they're going to get routinely. Because ultimately, as Dean Smith said, they're not the Man City or Liverpool of the Premier League, of the Championship, but in terms of what they're seen as in this division, they are put on a pedestal, I'm sure, along with probably Watford and Burnley and Sheffield United now, given their start. And there will be that inbuilt respect from opponents, and they will try and make it hard and then try and get something and nick something. And they do have some talented individuals. They've been quite astute. They've got players in on loan from Liverpool, from I think Man City. I think they've got Patino from Arsenal as well. So there is individual quality in their group. But when all said and done, as you rightly said, you look at their results, and the only time they won here is the opening day of the season. They've only won once beyond that, and that was away at Huddersfield, who subsequently made a managerial change. Much like Millwall, maybe less so Millwall, but maybe some of these other games that they've played this season, Norwich should be emerging with 3 points if they have, as we all believe they do, the aspirations to go on and get back to the Premier League. It's one of those where it might be uncomfortable for a period today, but you'd expect them, with the quality they've got in their ranks, to get back on the coach this afternoon, and hopefully they've got another 3 points closer to the end destination.
Very quickly, Pad, score prediction, what are you going for?
Well, I mean, at the Tower, I thought probably a draw, but now we're ensconced and now we're sitting in very close proximity to the away supporters. I'm not going to go a draw. We'll have to go away win. So I'm going to go 1-2. Pookie on target again. You, Mr. Southwell?
Yeah, I am going to go for a draw. I think I can could see this being a bit. I could see this being like a 3-3 or something. I'm going to be honest, but I'll go with you. Let's go for a Norwich City win, shall we? And what you're going to do, you're going to spin around to the pitch, and I'm going to spin around and show you how close we are. If you look there, that is the away end. That is how close we are to it. Literally 2 seats and a stairway to my left, and there will be Norwich City fans this afternoon. 1,700 was the last number given, I believe, on Thursday. Maybe even more than that now, and it's let me tell you, it's some journey up from Norfolk to Blackpool this afternoon. So that's no mean feat at all. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, coverage of this afternoon's game will be on the Pink and Plus app. I'm on the live blog this afternoon. You can come and join me. If you're yet to take out a free trial for that, pinken.com, the place to go. Tab in the top left. Follow all the instructions. You can activate that for you there. And we'll, of course, have all the analysis and reaction to this game as well. Norwich City looking to go 8 unbeaten in the Championship this afternoon. Let's see how they get on. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon.